Do you plan how to fuel your day yourself? We put gas in our cars, but we don't always think about what we're putting in our bodies to get through our day. Welcome back to the Crack the Code podcast. I'm your host, Cora Naylor, and today I'm excited to have back Kathy Davis. Kathy is a wellness and mindset mentor, the founder of Veginspired, and a 4-time best-selling author. Kathy empowers female entrepreneurs to live inspired and successful lives fueled by plants. Kathy's on a mission to help women eat and live in alignment with their true goals and leverage the power of plant-centered eating to achieve success. Kathy embodies a veg-inspired life of inspiration and success fueled by plants as she runs her business while simultaneously traveling the United States in an RV with her husband and cat. They've been to 29 states and 20 national parks and have a goal to visit all the U.S. national parks. Welcome back, Kathy.
Thanks, Cora. I'm so excited to be here and to be back with the Crack the Code audience.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just want to let everybody know, if you want to learn more about living in an RV and traveling, listen back to episode 26, where Kathy does an interview with me when we talk about how to live and work in an RV. So how's it going? I know you're on the road again, aren't you?
Always on the road, always on the road.
Yeah. So give us a little background about how you got into this whole plant-based eating and fueling yourself with plants.
Absolutely. And this is probably going to resonate with a lot of your audience. So folks, keep listening because you might find this very surprising. About 9 years ago, my husband actually introduced me to the concept of eating plant-based or eating more plants, essentially. And I was resistant. I didn't want to give up all the foods that I'd been eating, the standard American foods, the burgers, the French fries, all of the things that in my mind were outside of the scope of plant-based eating. And it took about 6 to 8 months of learning, experiencing plant-based foods, experiencing what eating more plants actually looked like and meant for me and for us. And it took some awarenesses. It took uncovering some beliefs that I had about food. It took looking at the information with more of an open mind and some discernment to say, wow, I can't find an article that doesn't support eating more plants, eating more vegetables, eating more fruits, eating more whole grains, eating more beans and lentils. I couldn't find something to support the way that I was eating. And I couldn't find an argument against it. And so about 6 months after he proposed the idea, I went all in. I made a committed decision and started to adopt this plant-based way of eating, more of a vegan way of eating. I relied a lot on processed foods, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then so that was about 8 years ago. And it took me about 5 years to recognize that the processed foods weren't much healthier than the animal products that I'd been eating. And so about 3.5 years ago, I pivoted my vegan way of eating to a very intentional, whole food, clean, plant-centered, plant-based way of eating. And I've found tremendous results with that.
Yeah. And can you maybe explain to people what's the difference between plant-based and vegan? Because I think there's a lot of confusion out there about that.
Absolutely. So in my world and my definition, veganism is really about a way of living that does the least amount of harm to animals. So for me, I would label myself, if labels are your thing, vegan, because I choose not to wear animal products made from animals. I choose to release spiders into the wild. I choose not to see animals as entertainment. So I don't go to zoos. I don't go to horse races. I don't go to rodeos. I tend to spend my time supporting farm sanctuaries, visiting farmed animals that have been rescued. And those are the organizations that I support with my donations and with my philanthropic interests. Where plant-based is more centered around the eating.
Yeah.
So when I say I took my vegan lifestyle to plant-based eating, it's not that I gave up not wearing animals. It's just that I shifted the focus of how I ate. So instead of eating a vegan processed burger, I choose to eat a black bean burger made with vegetables and more whole food ingredients instead of some of the processed, you know, I mean, let's not beat around the bush, processed chemicals that are in a lot of the vegan analog products.
Yeah.
And it was a shift for me. And I do believe that there's a place for the processed animal products in, or processed non-animal products, the processed vegan products in the world. I do think they're great transitions. They're great transition foods. That's what helped me along my journey, but they're not things that I choose to make a habit of. I don't want my habit to be to grab a vegan Whopper. I want it to be to find the best plant-based bean vegetable burger that I can find
Yeah.
on my travels.
Yeah. I love that because I know I'm definitely way more plant-based than I ever have, but I can see how it's very easy to say, "Oh, I'm going plant-based or vegan," and think that you're being healthy when there are, just because something says, and that's sort of the new, key word out there in marketing, like, right? Like the 80s, it was low fat, and now it's like plant-based. Well, yeah, potato chips might be plant-based, but that doesn't mean they're healthy.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the issues I would say that we face as a society is that it's very easy to be misled by the marketing. I have a client that came to me and she said, "I've been eating this frozen meal that says made with plants." She said, "And I just turned the box over and realized that it has eggs in it. And so I've been eating eggs for 6 months and didn't even know it." And it's because the ingredient is made with the boxed food does have plants in it. It does have
Mhm.
asparagus and all these other vegetables. So it comes down to being a conscious consumer. I don't buy a lot of boxed foods. I
Mhm.
do use canned beans. I do use frozen vegetables. I'm not opposed
Yeah.
to convenient whole foods. And I have a lot of ideas for ways to toss together meals using some of those convenient whole foods that we can find in our market. But when it comes down to looking at the label and being a conscious consumer, it comes down to checking to see what's in our foods. Are there ingredients that maybe don't align with the way that we want to live, that maybe don't align with our goals of eating, more of these whole clean plant foods?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you don't buy too much packaged food, you're eating whole foods. And it's so easy. I know my husband and I, we're both on a little bit different eating plans right now, but it's just so much easier to just prep a few things, whole food. And then when you go to the fridge, you just mix and match and create a meal out of nothing in a way. It feels like after so many years of preparing meals. I'm glad I don't have kids at home anymore. And plus with the price of foods right now, eating whole food vegetables is a lot cheaper than everything else out there.
Absolutely. Beans can be very, very, but budget friendly. You can buy a bag of dried beans, and it basically a bag of dried beans, a pound of beans is the equivalent to 4 cans. And
Mhm.
there, when you eat beans with brown rice, it's a complete protein. It gives you all the amino acids that you need. And a lot of times we aren't thinking that because that's not what the industry's telling us.
Yeah.
And so, brown rice can be very inexpensive. Beans can be very inexpensive. We're coming upon a season where you can find a lot of local vegetables at your local, either in your own garden or in your local market. So you're eating closer to home. You're eating more salads. You can eat more fresh vegetables and starting to combine those foods. And I love that you brought up the prepping because you can make a batch of rice and make a batch of beans and then add in a steamed kale or a salad that you make in the moment, and you have this complete colorful meal that supports your goals of eating more plants.
Yeah. Or potatoes. I eat a lot of potatoes.
Me too. I love potatoes.
Yeah. So tell us, I know you've written a few cookbooks. So is that from, your, years of trying to find something good to eat that you started writing your own cookbooks?
Absolutely. And the cookbooks actually bust the 3 myths that most people say when the idea comes to eating more plants or eating plant-based. The first one is the 30-minute whole food plant-based cookbook. So it's easy, over 100 easy recipes that are all ready in 30 minutes or less. And that busts the myth of time, because this way of eating doesn't have to take time if you plan intentionally. If you look at your calendar and say, oh, I have an hour tomorrow to make a meal, but I only have 15 minutes the next day. Can I make 2 meals in my hour and then eat leftovers eat the next meal as if it's been meal prepped? The second book is the super easy plant-based cookbook, giving you recipes that are easy, ready, almost ready to use. There's 4 categories, a no cook category. So all the recipes in that section of the book are no cook. So they easily come together without a lot of cooking or with no cooking. There's more 30-minute recipes. And then there's also one pot meals have become my favorite.
Yeah.
Throw everything on a sheet pan, throw it in the oven. You can do something else while it roasts. Perfect. And then the third one is the budget-friendly cookbook. And the budget-friendly one digs into how to utilize those more expensive products, especially now that groceries, I think I read an article that groceries in the US are up 25%. So how to use those more expensive ingredients within the meals that are less expensive. So how do you take those coveted avocados and put them in with that beans and rice? How do you leverage more of the home cooked meals, the home prepared ingredients, and where you can splurge on different accompaniments to your meals?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I know now you're working with business women and, trying to plan for your day. So how do you fit those into, even if you're not in business, you're just busy, a lot of us are, planning your day so that you're fueled for the whole day? Because I know a lot of people maybe skip breakfast or, whatever they do. How do you work that in? Make sure you're energized.
Great question, Cora. So I actually teach meal planning from a pretty different perspective than most people. I want you to plan based on your calendar. I want you to take a look at your calendar and say, oh, tomorrow I have 4 back-to-back calls. How can I make sure that I eat breakfast and I'm just as energized from the food that I eat on the first call as I will be on the 4th call 4 hours later? And that's so important, because every time you're in a call, every time you're live on Instagram, every time you're showing up with your boss or with your colleagues or with your clients, you're putting out your personality. And so if they see you at an 8 o'clock meeting and you're energized and you're fun and you're excited and you're sipping your latte, and then 2 hours later you're down in the dumps in this, low energy vibration because you're hungry or because you've hit that sugar slump from that high sugar latte, because you didn't eat foods that stabilize your blood sugar. My favorite breakfast for a high energy day is oatmeal. A lot of people are like, no, that's too much sugar, because we've been misinformed about sugars and what our body runs on. But the starches that are in brown oatmeal for a breakfast help to neutralize your blood sugar, not having you crash 2 hours later, because they're a low processing food. So they take longer to process, but more resistant, and it helps to stabilize your blood sugar. Add in some nuts, add in some fruit, add in some seeds. I love ground flax. Use a little bit of plant milk, almond milk, soy milk, whatever you love. Make this nice oatmeal bowl, eat it for breakfast, and have some stabilized energy. Some other ways that I teach my clients to plan in meals for their busy schedule is, what are your crunch times? If you're a busy mom and your crunch times, you're getting kids out the door, your spouse is going in a different direction. I mean, everything's chaos in the morning. Don't try to put something in the crock pot at that time of the day. Maybe you prepare the largest meal at lunchtime, and then your family actually eats it as a leftover, even though it's been prepared during the day when you have a downtime. So how to leverage the time that you do have in order to make foods work into your schedule. And then, as you said, prepping some of these ingredients. Can you put the rice in the Instant Pot on delay so that the rice is ready when you get home, and you already chopped all your vegetables the day before when you made your mason jar salads for the week, and you can easily throw together a stir fry that you eat over that rice that was cooked. So just little tips and tricks like that to help you look at your whole schedule and then fit in the the plant ingredients, because it really takes no more time to cut a couple of vegetables for a mason jar salad or for a stir fry than it would to slice up chicken or slice up steak to go in the grill. I mean, it's the same kind of preparation. We just see it differently because somebody told us that eating plant-based is time consuming.
Yeah. And we're not used to it. If we grew up on the sort of standard diet, the meat, potatoes, and vegetables, and we've just always thought like that. It just takes a while to get your head wrapped around how to prepare a plant-based meal as well. And I love your idea of doing, like, figuring out the schedule, because I think that's where a lot of people probably fail, because they think, oh, I'm going to do this. I got this 30-day meal planner, so I got to do this. And it's like, well, I don't have time to do all that today. And it doesn't matter if you're doing meat or vegetables, whatever kind of diet you're doing.
That's why I teach meal planning the way that I teach it, because people will go out and buy these meal plans or buy these meal prep plans, and they'll look at it and it doesn't fit their schedule. It doesn't fit the way their family eats. It doesn't, you buy a plant-based meal plan and the whole week uses mushrooms and your family hates mushrooms. You buy a plant-based meal plan and it uses lima beans and nobody in your family's ever eaten a lima bean. So you skip all three of those recipes. And so you spent money on this and it still doesn't solve the problem, right? The problem then becomes, the solution then becomes the problem. And so instead, we take a step back and we say, how can I actually fit the food that I want to eat into my schedule? And so I teach that in the Meal Plan Accountability Club. That's one of my offerings, is a weekly meeting where we go through how to fit the foods that you want to eat into your life.
Yeah. And was there anything else you wanted to share with the listeners?
One of the biggest things that I if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I would love to eat more plants, but this whole going vegan thing, like, that doesn't work for me. It didn't work for me either. That's not what we're talking about. One of the biggest things that I've learned over the course of the last 9 years is that you can still reap the benefits of eating more plants. And when we talk about plants, we're not just talking about eating more cucumbers. We're talking about eating more whole grains, eating more dark leafy greens, your kale, your bok choy, your cabbage, eating more vegetables, just more vegetables in general, eating more fruit. Fruit is not the enemy when you're eating following a balanced way of eating more nuts and seeds. Can you trade your super processed granola bar for a trail mix where you can actually see the nuts and the dried fruit and the seeds that are in it versus some, flour granola bar that's going to process super quick in your body and leave you hungry after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, like, my biggest takeaway that I want you to, to really understand is eating more plants is about how you can add more of the fiber and the phytonutrients of these plant foods into the way that you eat and start to crowd out more of those processed animal products that are highly inflammatory, cholesterol filled, and really don't yield the best benefit for our health.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might have some amazing results just by doing that. But I love how you said, if you're not ready to go full force, go part way, start adding an extra serving of vegetables on your plate. Like, how can you start adding in instead of, and then shift if you want to. Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
And so how can people get a hold of you? Of course, everything's going to be in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to get in touch if they want to learn more or try one of your plans or do something?
Absolutely. The best way to find me is on Instagram at Veginspired. I know that link will be in the show notes below, but it's simple, Veginspired. That's me. I'm super active. I run my own Instagram account. So if you're listening and you're like, I just want to be in your space, I just want to hear more about eating more plants, about living this thriving life, and I want to see your travel adventures, come over and connect on Instagram and let me know you found me on Crack the Code.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much. It's lovely having you back on the show again. I could talk to you about this all day, every day, because I'm really passionate about health and living our best life. So thanks again for coming, Kathy. And for you listeners, if you're ready to make a change, be sure to get in touch with Kathy, and just know it doesn't have to be an overnight thing. Take baby steps. How can you add in more healthy things to your diet and just slowly start transitioning maybe some of the not so healthy things out, because it is never too late.